Hello, Longview ISD families. We are very happy and honored to have a very, very special guest. Today, we will be sharing and engaging with the best-selling author known as the Teen Whisperer, Mr. Mark Gregston. He's also the founder of Heartlight Ministries, a great organization that provides a lot of support for young people and teens all over this country. So Mark, welcome. We are very honored to have you.
Good to be here. Good to be here.
Thank you very much. And I set up a few questions that I wanted to ask you. I'm pretty sure that our families want to get to know a little bit more about what you do for teens, and maybe some tips and recommendations that they can apply on a daily basis with their kids. And then we're going to be talking a little bit about a seminar or a series of seminars that you're going to be having here in East Texas. And I know that our families are going to be really interested in hearing that. So let's start off with the first question that I wanted to ask you, and it's, when did you realize that you wanted to help struggling teenagers and parents?
You know, I don't think I really realized. I think I kind of fell into in one sense. Somebody came to me and said, do you want to work with kids? I was a teenager at the time. I was 19. And so I said, sure, we'll start working with kids. And then after a while, we realized that a lot of kids were struggling. So we kept doing that. This is while I was in college. This is while I went to graduate school. This is all the things that I was doing kind of on the side. Then a church came to me and said, would you work for us? And I said, I'll never work for a church. And then they said, well, pay for your schooling. And I said, I'm in. And so I was there for 7 years, and while I went through school, and it was interesting to me that all during that time, people would always come to me and say, we're struggling with our kids. What do we do? And so even though it was as a youth pastor or doing things, taking kids on trips, my heart was really probably molded into dealing with kids who were just having a tough time. And so it got to the point where people would come to me and say, can you help us? And I said, well, let your child come live with us. My wife and I dated, since the 9th grade, and our first date was a Led Zeppelin concert, So it kind of ages us a little bit, but our intention was to say, how do we help these kids? Well, I was pursuing a degree in real estate investments and finance. I mean, so
completely different field there.
Yeah, it was. And so knowledge-wise, that's what I was going after. My heart was being pulled toward these kids that were struggling because nothing was working. And so we left, and we went to a sports camp, spent time there, and then left 33 years ago and came to East Texas, right outside of Hallsville. And said, let's work with kids, have them come live with us. So long and short of it, we've now had over 3,000 kids live with us. They come from all over the country and other countries, kids adopted from Russia and Kazakhstan and, anywhere. And it's just kids who are struggling. And so now I spend most of my time going out and helping parents where they never have to send their child to come live with us. Just to prevent. Yeah, just saying, let's take the stuff that we've learned, let's take the lessons that we've been taught, gather the wisdom and that insights, and put them in the books, and put them in the seminars and conferences, and help as many people as we can. So that's what we're doing.
That is absolutely wonderful. That's fantastic. And so in your opinion, Mark, what are the biggest challenges that parents have these days? Because we know that times change, teenagers change the way they think, and what challenges do you think parents have these days when parenting teenagers, and what can they start doing to overcome those challenges?
Yeah, I think some of the biggest challenges they have, is that the world of communication has changed, and the type of relationships that kids have has changed as well. They don't look. Kids don't look eyeball to eyeball when they're talking as much because they're staring at a phone most of the time, or they're looking at a screen. They communicate differently, and the problem isn't that, because I'm one of those guys that's not an anti-world or anti-technology guy. It's a part of our world. You can either raise your kids to live in a zoo, or you can train them to survive in the jungle. And my thing is, how do we help them develop different relationships? Because from those relationships, kids will develop a sense of value, a sense of maturity, a sense of responsibility. I mean, we all know that kids just aren't as mature as they used to be. And the American Journal of Adolescent Psychiatry has increased the age to 26. And so we know that kids are more immature. It's like the old proverb that says, just as iron sharpens iron, so shall one man sharpen the other. Well, these kids don't have the depth of relationships. They probably spend most of their time in the shallow end of the relationship pool. So they're not having that type of intensity that really helps form a child's value system and really have them embrace what the principles they want to live by, or develop a moral compass. So at the same time, they're being bombarded with information. And so all this information is coming to them more than you and I have ever had bombarded to us. When you and I grew up, information doubled every 13 years. It's now doubling every hour and a half. And so that means that if you as a parent are doing nothing but sharing information with your kids will turn you off in a heartbeat, because they already have enough information. What they're looking for is wisdom. And that wisdom is gained through what we've observed, what we've reflected on, what we've experienced, and how we take all those things that we believe and inject them into our child's life. It's just different than it was even 3 and 4 years ago. Kids do, think differently. Some don't think at all because they don't have to. And some overthink it because they're not finding what they're really longing for. And that's somebody, an adult, somebody older, somebody more mature, that can give them a taste of what wisdom is, so they can find those things that they're looking for in life.
Interesting. I would never have thought that the key for parents to actually help their teens during these days would be something as like wisdom.
Yeah.
And it's super valuable, but I'm pretty sure a lot of our folks, a lot of our families are not aware of the importance of wisdom and how to gain that wisdom. And we'll talk about that in just a few minutes. But I would like to move on with the following question that I had, which is, in your opinion, what are the biggest missteps that parents make when they are trying to parent a teenager?
Yeah. Probably one of the biggest steps, I think, is not switching from a teaching model, which works really well from ages 1 to 12, to a training model, which is really like 13 to 21. And what that means is I'm going to change the way I engage with my child. Most parents, because they feel like they're doing such a wonderful job in the preteen years, where they're given coffee mugs and t-shirts that say world's greatest mom and world's greatest dad, they think, I got this, I'm really good at this. And then their child changes when they turn 12 and 13. And this is why the middle school years are so important. They start to change, but the parents don't change. And so kids now want something different, and parents are still giving them the old stuff when they want something completely new. Meaning this, instead of a parent making decisions, they now need to teach their kids how to make decisions. Instead of a parent being totally responsible, now they need to transfer responsibility. Instead of a parent being in control, they need to start giving control to their child. Instead of allowing dependence on them, now they need to create a world of independence. We're training up a child in the way they should go, so when they graduate from high school, then they're ready to launch. They're not ready to flop on their face and not know what to do. We need to prepare them to go into a world that is far different than the world that you and I have lived in, but it's a world that's different for them. And so it's just saying, I'm going to start training them for those things. Instead of sharing information, I'm going to be sharing more wisdom. Instead of talking all the time, I'm going to be listening just a little bit more.
That's important.
It is. Instead of thinking that my words are the greatest way to affect my child, it's not. When a child moves into a training mode, then it's all about your example that you put before them. A living example of somebody that is living out the values, the moral compass, the principles, whatever you live by. They need to see it happening in front of them, because all they're doing is just hearing about it. They don't get to see it anymore. And I think that's really because there's been a lack of respect that is happening for anybody that's older. Kids, because of the way they get information and the amount of information they're bombarded with, hear every piece of dirt on everybody there is. I mean, everybody. I mean, it's almost like saying, what does a child think of when they hear the word politics?
Yeah.
I mean, it's far different. When they hear the word priest, with all due respect to the Catholic Church, they hear something different. I was in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. When they hear the word coach, now they look at, and I had coaches involved in my life. I've had pastors and priests and every kind of godly people involved in my life. I've had politicians that I've known that I've thought the world of. Well, these kids don't have that. And that's not saying that it's bad. I had teachers involved in my life. Teaching, which is probably the most admirable profession that anybody could have. I mean, kids don't respect teachers like they used to because they hear all these negative stuff. And so they kind of eliminate that. And teachers have to back off a little bit as well, so they're not having as big an influence as they would always long for. So I think those role models that we've placed before people in the past aren't there as much as we'd like for them to be, which sets every parent up to be that role model, to be that one that is walking in a way that is blameless and engaged and has a relationship with their child. And that's what I spend most of my time helping parents do. Develop better relationships with their kids. If you have a discipline problem, and I would say this to anybody who's watching this, if you have a discipline problem, you have a relationship problem. And so that's what you've got to do, is work on the relationship, and then things will usually work themselves out. Once you figure out what's causing the destruction of relationships within a family, between a mom and a dad, and their kids, whether it be preteen. I mean, parents wake up all the time and they go, where did my child go? It's like they walked upstairs one day and then came down the next morning and they're a completely different child. And so a parent's going, what do I do different? That's where I spend a lot of my time going, hey, here's some things you can do different. Here's some ways to engage differently. Here's a way to develop a different kind of relationship that's going to launch into their adult life so you can continue to have influence in their life for years to come.
Amazing. And it's just words out with wisdom. Thank you very much for that. I know that our families will be enjoying everything that you will be sharing along with us. And I wanted to ask you, are there any essential habits or any essential skills or qualities that that every parent should develop in order to raise teens?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, if you want to be successful at it, then the first thing would be what I mentioned, a relationship. Asking yourself the question first, what is it about me that is getting in the way of a relationship with my child? And I would tell you, do this. Text your child right now and say, what is it that's getting in the way of our relationship? And let them answer whatever that is. And don't correct them, tell them where they're wrong or how they need to answer differently next time. Just listen to what they're saying. And then work on those things that are getting in the way of the relationship so you can change that relationship and be one that's full of influence. The second thing I would say, you got to develop some structure at home. And what that means is you just come up with those 5 rules that you say, this is what I want our family to look like. We're going to live by these 5 rules. If you'll do this for me, if I get this from you, then I'll do this for you. And somebody says, well, that's manipulative. Yeah, It is. Because I want to see a child perform in a way so they create a relational atmosphere. And if they do that, I will do this for them.
It's kind of how the real world works.
It really is. It's like you work, you get a paycheck.
Exactly.
You know, you don't work, you don't get a paycheck. You know, kind of thing. I'm helping a child become more independent, but understand the concept of responsibility is that they have some say in what's going on in their life. So they need to make good choices. And if they don't make good choices, then there's consequences. That is just a real world example. And so the first thing would be relationships. The second thing is structure. But the third thing that's so important is to deal with the issues in a child's life that are coming up. If you have a child that is out of control, if you have a child that's acting up and something's going wrong and it's not like what you think you want it to be, then there's something else going on. Behavior is the visible expression of the invisible issues in the life of a child. So we can control their behavior, but if all you do is control their behavior, then when they leave home, they're going to go right back to it. And so what I want more than anything else is to get to the issues of the heart that changes a child's heart so I don't have to worry about the behavior anymore. And so it just means that between a relationship and developing structure and spending a lot of time helping them deal with issues, and that may be the way that I discuss things with them, it may be the questions I ask, it may be the time that I spend with them, or it may be the way that I send them to a counselor or get some help, you know, some prescription for some kind of medicine that might help them if they're having some other issues from, you know, being bipolar or anxious or depressed or all those things. Get some help to deal with those issues. And so I think that those three things would be the things that I would say are probably the key elements to really a healthy family.
Mm-hmm. Now, Mark, can you give us some examples of like very practical examples of how to connect with a teen that is struggling at home or at school?
Yeah, you know, I think if a child is struggling, the first thing to do is to identify that and to watch your approach to it. And how do you know that a teen's struggling? I think you start looking for some signs. And those signs would be that a child is depressed, they're overly anxious, they're hating things they used to love, and they're loving things they used to hate. They're disengaged from old friends. There's kind of a darkness around them. You see a change in their words and their actions. You see a great sense of disrespect. You're experiencing a little bit of disobedience, and they become somewhat dishonest. I mean, they may be deceitful in the way that they're engaging. These are all signs that I go, something is going on. And maybe that they're just having a hard time transitioning to the next grade. And you'll see this in September and October when kids move up into middle school, when they move up into, you know, a high school. I mean, even when those that go off to college, you begin to see some things change. What's happening is they're finding out that the old way of doing things isn't working anymore. So I've got to figure out a new way to get attention from people and to engage with them. And so there's some signs that something is starting to go awry, and I've got to do something different. The first thing to do is to sit down and say, hey, I think we have an issue here. I think we need to talk about something. I see this happening. Hey, is there something going on? Is there something I can help you with? And of course the child's going to say, what? No, it's fine.
Yeah,
it's
everything's
fine.
fine.
That's right.
That's what I used to tell my mom.
That's right, because they minimize everything.
Yeah.
And so it's just going, I know there's something going on because the behavior is that visible expression of what's actually happening. And so it just means I'm going to spend more time with them. So that's why I encourage parents all the time. Find a time once a week that you can get with your child and go get coffee, go get ice cream, go get something to eat, go sit down somewhere, go to a park, go on a walk, buy a dog, and go rescue a dog. That'd be wonderful. Go rescue a dog and take that dog on a walk, you know, and just have a consistent time that you are listening to the heart of your child and asking them questions. Don't give them answers. Just ask questions and hear their heart more than anything else.
This is amazing, because a common factor that I'm seeing in a lot of the information that you're telling me is listening. I mean, listening is key in this process when it comes to parenting teens. Now, my next question is, you must be familiar with a lot of broken relationships between parents and kids. How can a parent restore a broken or a hurt relationship with a teen?
Wow. Usually it takes time, but, I think the first step in that is admitting wrongdoing. There's an African proverb, it's a Chinese proverb, it's an old Irish proverb, and you'll find it in Scripture as well in the Old Testament. It says, but before you look at the speck in somebody else's eye, look at the log in your own. And it doesn't mean that you have a bigger problem than somebody else, but everybody in this world has come to the realization that there's an issue that we have a tendency to put it off on somebody else. And the first place I need to go is to be asking myself the question, what is it about me? And it may be texting. Here's another question. You can text to your kids, what would you like to see change within our family? And just ask the question and let them respond. I wish we had more time together. I wish you wouldn't be so angry all the time, Dad. Mom, I wish you would quit talking all the time. I mean, it's whatever those things are. I think it's listening to a child and saying, I will change those things. Because what you're doing then is setting up the atmosphere for your home to be a place of change. Mm-hmm. And that's what you want. If a mom and dad can't change, then your kids are never going to change. If you can't forgive, your kids will never forgive. If you can't say you're wrong, then you'll never hear those words, dropping out of your child's mouth.
They do what they see.
That's right. That's where the power of the example is so much more important. And so if they see those things, then they can replicate those things. And it's just saying that we engage differently in hopes of touching their heart, not just controlling their behavior.
Interesting. Mark, now can you give us some background information on how you became an expert of when managing relationships with teens?
Yeah, I don't know what an expert is, quite honestly. I live with 60 high school kids. If you drive between Longview and Hallsville on Highway 80, there's a huge field of log cabins.
It's a beautiful facility.
Yeah, it is. And as I tell people that every one of those buildings will rot one day, and that's not what we're about. We're about the hearts of the kids that live with us. And these kids come from all over the country. And when you've lived with 3,000 different kids, you learn what works and what doesn't work. It's not just, well, I've learned this from one kid, or this is what I think. Most of the stuff that I write about, and I can't remember what's in what book or what, but it's mostly stories about kids and what we've learned from them. This is what's working in the life of this child. And it's interesting. I wrote a book, probably 8-9 years ago, and we were going to rewrite it and re-release it. And as I was going through it, I go, this book is so outdated, it's not even worth rewriting. So my point of it is that what was working 8 years ago, it's not working today. Mm-hmm. And so because we spend so much time with kids and in counseling and group meetings and relationally and helping these kids, they live with us for about a year, we learn their habits, we learn what works, what doesn't work, and as a result, we get to share those things with families and say, wait, here's some things you can do to change the path that your family is headed down. And here's some things, it's easy things to do it differently, and you'll go off on a different path rather than heading to the calamity that's going to be before you pretty quick.
And that's amazing because, you're saying that you learned a lot from previous experiences or from the experiences you've had with kids. And our parents have experiences with their kids. Yeah. The difference is that a lot of parents do not learn from experiences or past experiences with their kids. Yeah. And like you said, one thing that could help a lot is admitting things that we do wrong, because we all do things that are wrong. We're not perfect. Yeah. Now, would you, as the founder of a great organization like Heartlight Ministries, what do you think is the key to your and your team's success when taking in a struggling teenager from somewhere?
I think it's the way we love them. I mean, I think we're somewhat disconnected emotionally because it's not our child, but the way we love them. I think the power of unconditional love can warm the coldness of hearts, and so I think it's also sharing wisdom with them. I think it's helping them reflect on their own thinking patterns that may be skewed a little bit, that may be wrong, that may have been developed, that may have come out of a sense of abuse or neglect or whatever. And somebody goes, well, what kind of kids do you deal with? You come and look at the kids that live with us, and they're no different than any other kid that lives in Longview. It's a mixture of kids. There's every race, every background, from every country. I mean, every socioeconomic strata. I mean, it is a mixture of kids. They're wonderful kids. They're absolutely, if they walked in here right now, you'd go, that's a great looking group of kids. They'll treat you nice, but they're struggling through things. And about half of our kids would say this: I wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for Heartlight. And this isn't a promo for Heartlight, but what I am saying is what we've learned has been effective enough that it's saving the lives of kids, and it's saving the destiny of families as well.
That is amazing. That's absolutely wonderful, and congratulations and I know that your team is not here with you. We have one of the members of your team here with us, but what you guys do for kids is absolutely wonderful. Now, what tools and resources would you recommend to our parents so that they can achieve a healthy relationship with their teenagers moving forward?
Well, yeah, I think, of course you can buy books, but I go, you don't have to buy the books, because you can get all the same information off of our app called Parenting Today's Teens. You can listen to our radio program that's heard on about 1,800 stations across the country. That's called Parenting Today's Teens with Mark Gregston. Our podcast, go to Parenting Today's Teens, and it's a daily podcast.
On Facebook, there's a Facebook page.
There's a Facebook page as well called Parenting Today's Teens, and I mean, so there's a parenting newsletter, oddly, what it's called, the same thing, that we send out. We give away so much information. There's no need to buy anything. If you're looking and saying, well, I need a small group curriculum for our church or our small group, whatever, don't buy it. You can get on our Facebook and get it for free. We give it away with the idea of saying, how do we help families, not have to come to this? And so if there is a problem, we do these family and crisis conferences, and we've always had them at Heartlight. Now we do them by Zoom, and we've probably, multiplied the number of participants by 10 in that thing, having 300 or 400 people on each call now, just helping parents through, and they can find out about that on parentingtodaysteens.org.
So I wanted to ask you, what's the website so that our parents can go to the website and get all these resources?
It's parentingtodaysteens.org. I mean, and you could look up Mark Gregston, and it'll all go to the same thing. You look up Heartlight, and it'll go to the same thing. I mean, It's all there. But more than anything else, we're saying, how can we provide, this area, especially East Texas, how can we provide places for people to go to get the help they need for their kids? And so that's why we're doing the seminar week.
Absolutely. And before we jump into that, because I would love for you to let our families know about the dates we have. There is an agenda. There's already dates scheduled for each seminar. It's completely free. But before we go to that, what final message would you like to leave to our teenagers or parents that don't know what a healthy relationship is and have lost hope along the way?
I think to any teenager, I go, I think your parent holds an unbelievable position in your life that you want to make sure that whatever you're doing, that it remains together 10 years from now. You don't want to be a 30-year-old hating your parents. I've never met anybody who goes, I'd really like to be a messed up kid. I'd really like to not get along with my parents. I've never met anybody that has said that. To parents, I would say this, that there's something about engaging differently, the way that we engage with one another, that is just has an amazing way of changing the hearts of kids. Communicating to your kids, hey, I want you to know that there's nothing you can do to make me love you more, and there's nothing you can do to make me love you less. That message alone, coupled with maybe admitting your own wrongdoing, starting to listen a little bit more, and engaging differently, not believing that what you used to do is now wrong. It just means that it worked for a while. Now it doesn't. You've got to develop some new skills. I think there's some basic things that can be done, basic messages that we give them that can change the destiny of a family so that you remain intact, so that when you have a wedding in your family, you're celebrating and you're not sitting there thinking about, all the regrets you have for not doing something earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, Mark, before we let you go, we have a parenting, teens seminar in East Texas. It's completely free.
Yeah.
Now, what are the dates that are scheduled for these seminars, or where can they go to have more information, find the information? I know we will be posting the information on our Facebook page, on the Longview ISD Facebook page. We'll also be passing out flyers in high school and make sure that our parents are aware of it. But can you talk a little bit about the upcoming events here in East Texas, and how can they register for it? Do they need to go somewhere to register?
Yeah. No, you don't need to register, but it is free and it's for everybody. We did this. We traditionally put on a concert at the Belcher Center at Laterno University, and I just said, let's not do that this year. Let's do something different. Let's offer something back to the Longview area, all of East Texas. And so I said, let's do seminars, parenting seminars, to help people. And so that's how this whole thing started. It was just an idea. So we called together school systems and churches and said, can we collectively do this? And here's the thing. I spend 200 nights on the road speaking around the country, and I'm thinking, why don't we just do that here? So on August 23rd, we will kick off a week of parenting seminars. Each one of them is the same, but we're going to be at Mobberly Baptist Church on Sunday night, the 23rd, and then on the 24th, we're going to be at Gilmer, either that or Spring Hill. One of the two.
I know the third night is at Spring Hill.
Yeah, third night. So it's Gilmer on Monday night, Spring Hill on Tuesday night, Wednesday night at New Beginnings Baptist Church. Let me back up. On Tuesday morning, am I messing this thing up? On Tuesday morning, it'll be at Alpine Church of Christ, a 9 o'clock to 11 event, 9 a.m. to 11 p.m. All these other ones are 6 until 8 p.m. at night. And then on Thursday, August 27th at First Baptist Church at 4 o'clock, we're having a special seminar for grandparents. And everybody knows that grandkids are a reward for not killing your own kids. And these kids, this generation needs grandparents involved in their life. And so our hope is that grandparents will show up there. It's from 4 o'clock to 6 o'clock in the afternoon. So it's a full week. There's 7 seminars. And to find out about it, you can go to www.easttexas2020.org. It's easttexas2020.org. And you can find out more information and the exact times if I've just messed it all up.
Absolutely. And once again, we will be posting that information on our social media. We'll make it available for you so that you are aware. And please mark your calendars so that you can separate at least one day. I know you might be very busy, but try to do your best to separate a day to go and just gather as much wisdom as you can, because Mark's going to be there. It's going to be a wonderful experience, and I'm 100% sure that the time that you invest there will be enough to improve the relationship that you have with your kids.
Wow.
Mark, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for being here. We also want to thank Aaron with Heartlight Ministries. He's also here. Please give us our best to all the Heartlight team, and
You bet.
we are just honored to have you here. Thank you so much.
You bet. Thanks. It's been great.
Thank you very much. Thank you, guys.